14th of July, Friday, 9 minutes to 2 p.m. in the afternoon in Australia. Here's my next video blog. And this is my second video today. Someone kindly sent me a couple of screenshots of the last webbot. Now, I've been following Cliff High, and it's one of those things, he does cop it a lot, because there's a lot of speculators and everyone's different. There's a lot of different types of personalities. You know, some people are skeptics, some people are very conservative, some people are, just believe anything they hear, and then there's people who use critical analysis. And so what happens is we get a lot of division and a lot of mixed information, and a lot of emotion seems to be delivered when someone comes forward with a perspective or an opinion. You see this type of behaviour on YouTube in the comments, and people are really easy to quickly write off information. They don't like their beliefs being disrupted, and these are psychological things that we have to deal with. And I think when you understand cognitive dissonance and normality bias and these type of things, all of a sudden you can then allow the walls to break down a little bit and learn to just listen and apply where you feel necessary. It doesn't mean you have to believe everything. That's not what information is about. Information is about the opportunity to absorb key things that are going to change your reality or your perspective, or help you make greater decisions in life. And I think that's the biggest thing that we are missing in society, is the ability to have access to the information so easily, in the sense that there seems to be so much misinformation, and we quickly write off what we feel is the truth, because sometimes we're just scared. We're scared of the truth. And you see that a lot, especially when the powers to be like to manipulate the way we think. But again, this comes up to the individual. So I can only ever control my own reality, and I'm never going to ever put information forward to distort someone's perspective. However, from a coaching point of view, sometimes you feel like you want to do that. You want to go, oh, well, this is the way. However, it's always up to the individual to go through their own journey and obtain the moments of clarity that are going to hopefully improve their life, whether it's from investments or health and fitness, or just from high states of awareness and consciousness. And that's all what I'm about. Now, I was kindly given some information in regards to the webbot, and what I've noticed is, it's all good and fun and games. Read this information. We trust Cliff in the sense that he's got his perspective. Apparently he's got an algorithm or a webbot that takes certain key elements from the internet and puts it into a report with the perspective of, or on the basis that humans are psychic, and it's going to give us a glimpse or a possible window into what could happen in the future. And you've got to take this information with a grain of salt, and I really do believe that. You've got to look at each element and ask yourself, how do you feel about that? Is that a possibility? And then you've got to research further. I would never ever take it blindly as gospel. However, it does seem to be, and this is the thing, what I've done is, it's easy to look at the report and then look forward. I think the big thing with these webbots is have a look what's happened, and then look back at the reports and the previous reports, and get those paragraphs where you can actually link them up to moments of time that have actually happened or have occurred. And all of a sudden you start to think, well, maybe there's a possibility here. And so what I've done today, I'm just going to get rid of my little matrix background, minimize it because I like it. There we go. So what I've got here is I've got a couple of just paragraphs out of the last, I think it's webbot 4, which would have been produced in June or April, May, probably May, in preparation for July, June, July, and then the latest one was actually prepared, I think, actually it's the other way around. July would have been prepared in May, that's what it looks like, and then you had July and August, which is now. That was prepared last month, because I got this a few weeks ago. So it's prepared in advance. Now, there are a couple of key elements here that I wanted to share with you, and I think these things have happened. Now, whether this is preemptive programming, or got lucky, or it's actual key, what do they call them, metadata, I forget what he talks on them, the actual key lingo he talks about, key elements that he's pulled from the internet, and then put it together in this report. So what I wanted to do was read out these two paragraphs. Now, what has happened in the last month? Last 2 months, let's say 45 days, 40 days, we've seen a massive retracement after a massive vertical line of explosion. Is that normal in markets? Yes. So you see that even on the stock market with individual stocks, they have an explosion of energy and excitement, and then it can taper off, and you can see these go up and down based on news or acquisitions and profit loss scenarios and things like that. In the crypto space, it's been a little bit different. Based on the reality that it's about market caps, it's a little bit different. So we've seen capital income, corporate interests come in with capital and boost these market caps to huge amounts, and there's no doubt that that's helped support the price. Now, it's leading up to the 14th of July, and the next 14 days we've got this hard fork SegWit stuff with Bitcoin. I don't think anything's going to happen with it. I don't think we need to panic too much. However, there's some references to what's happened in the last 45 days or the last 40 days in the reports, and I think it's worth considering, is that possibly going to happen in the next couple of months? And this is just information, this is just food for thought, and getting you to have a little bit of a ponder about the possibilities and what is going to happen in 2018. I'll be interested to see what happens in the next report, and you just got to keep your eye on it. And if there is any element of truth in these reports, then you may have an opportunity to grab things before they happen. If you're a complete skeptic, then you need to do a bit more research and do what you need to do outside of this. But before I keep dribbling, here's the paragraph. This is the one from the crocodile teeth, which is number 4, which would have been produced in May, pretty much when everything was hot. The language showing up for July includes major aspect sets headed for aggressive, energetic, frenetic, frantic, chaotic, and other words that are going to through the end of the 3rd week in July, which we're coming up to. We have data indicating we all should be feeling the ramping up of the intensity aspect of this summer Northern Hemisphere that is a forecast to build into a wall of intensity in September as the global government woes blow out past the secrecy barriers into global humanity awareness. These sets include explicit references to leaks of secret failings and failure in government that are forecasting a whipped up few months of emotional turmoil gripping traditional markets and traditional government. As the intensity emotions build in more or less developing chaos within humanity over these next few months, model space shows it all breaking into consciousness of the general public in the 6 weeks from the last week in June through the end of the first week in August. It is August 4th that shows as the emotional crescendo for these sets of the breaking into public awareness. These sets are explicitly referring to the liquidity freeze discussed in previous Alta reports over these past 19 months. These sets are indicating that the unaware population will be impacted by the liquidity freeze as the social institutions begin to fail, thus putting pressure on government at a global level. Now, there's no doubt we're seeing this big, massive retrace. The prices of all the cryptos are pretty much down. They're going sideways at the moment. Actually, they're just sort of going up and down 10 or 15%, and a little bit of an ebb and flow as we move up to August 1st. Someone did that little Bitcoin sign yesterday, this week, behind Yellen in the she was talking about doing audits, and that went viral, went on to mainstream. There's a lot more talk about Bitcoin. I think there's 260,000 new outlets in Japan, and access to, I think even in America they're talking about access to being able to use Bitcoin and LITECOIN and some other cryptocurrencies in some stores. So all of a sudden we're starting to see cryptocurrencies becoming more mainstream for everyday use, and it's happening very fast. So it's not just Japan and China and these sort of places. We're seeing it in the Western countries, and especially if it starts happening in the US with 350 million people, all of a sudden this starts to catch on, and people start to, and it works very, very quickly. Human consciousness tends to move very, very rapidly with new technology, and I think in this day where we've got social media, lots of photos and pictures, and people are connected more readily, you see that happens. I think the catching on to concepts moves a lot faster than it would, say, 20 or 30 years ago, where it was all down to traditional methods of exposure and information. So now moving on to the fifth wealth report, which is the hot rocket days. There's this big paragraph, so bear with me, I'm going to read it out. Very similar to this one that was done a couple of months ago, however it's moves on a little bit more. The accretion patterns of the model space as it is moved from late June through July show the continuation of the gap between the top crocodile teeth lasting into early July, the first week. Then the slight rise for the forward base of the tooth seems to be in place by mid-month, and the actual tooth formation beginning around the 23rd. Coincident with many other changes, including ramping up of the seismic activities. The level of the crocodile's tooth shape indicated by the data would have Bitcoin into the 4800s before the crown of the tooth is reached. We've got all the speculation coming up to the 1st of August. I think that's going to blow away. So between the 23rd of July, so the 7 days between 23rd of July and the 1st of August is where there's going to be a little bit of unknown energy. And I think anyone with a cool head and a little bit has done their research will sort of look at it and go, well, it's already moved on from that. So I think confidence will come into the space a lot sooner than we realise. The data accretion into model space across late July, specifically from the 25th onwards, would seem to be suggesting that something of a bottleneck will be resolved such that yet another cryptocurrency's eruption takes place. These sets are focusing on the resolution as being a key set of linguistics, and these contain repeated references to resignations and rescinding contracts. So is the bottleneck in the resolution in regards to SegWit and Bitcoin? It's a high possibility. These sets would seem to be forecasting the rescinding of the whatever we don't know now as being public enough to cause market movements. Further, the data has the resolution also creating something going toward public confidence restoration, and again, a whatever we don't know now. Our data sets of July and both August and September, through to lesser extents, being filled with the over-the-top reactions and unprecedented levels of expression of emotional states. These sets are seemingly indicating a connection to sun disease, long forecast in the Altus reports. Further, just going on that sun disease, whether you believe in chemtrails or not, I've been actually taking photos and videos for the last 18 months, so here in Canberra. So I've got a massive portfolio of evidence and videos of just crazy behaviour really on a day-to-day basis. I don't necessarily believe it's just for geoengineering or they're poisoning human race. I actually believe it's to reduce the effects of solar wind or space weather or coronal mass ejections from the sun. We're at an end of a cycle, but I don't want to go too much into that. I think there's when you actually go and research coronal mass ejections and understand what types of UV and the effect the solar winds have on our electrical systems and communications here on Earth, it'll start to fill in some gaps. And the reason why it's not disclosed is because they don't want mass panic. And you know what it's like when there's so many people who are probably looting. The end of days if they went and announced this type of stuff. And that's why there are secrets. And I sort of get that. But moving on. Further, the data has the expression of the over-the-top emotional state revealing being both public and markets affecting. Again, not very much indication as to which markets nor how impact, but the key takeaway is that a late in July breakout of performance in the cryptocurrencies is being associated with lamenting, brackets crying, and crushing anger in areas usually associated with debt-based markets in our system. That's interesting. So a breakout in performance in the cryptocurrencies are causing lamenting and crying and crushing anger in the debt-based markets. So I think there's going to be a shift between traditional This could be a transition period. There's going to be an effect, the slosh, maybe a lot more money going out of stocks and into crypto space. Maybe, I think, into precious metals too. The other cross links included explicit links to energy, including oil, and curiously, leisure travel cruise ships. That's interesting, a little bit left field there. The data sets have the month of July going from contention within the general financial sphere around the 14th, trailing off in sort of a whimper period right into the week of the 23rd. So from the 14th to the 23rd, which is pretty much today and now, this energy pattern of contention is also the largest set that has been dominating fiercely since the USA presidential elections of last year. It may be that some of the wins get sucked out from the sales by the resolution language, also coincident in July. There are also sets growing within that period of the 14th through to the 23rd for a surge of new initiatives relative to cryptocurrency specifically and crypto space generally that are forecast as being the launching of the next wave. This launching is indicated to include some of the cryptocurrencies noted in the discussion in this report. There are sets within model space showing that these cryptocurrencies coming into the space over these next 3 months, July, August, September, will be very long-term producers of growing wealth generation. This period is specifically showing up at very many different levels within model space as being a named period in history. So meaning that 2017 is a year to remember, maybe this period as the crypto boom, and I feel it's going to be a transition from traditional monetary systems into a new era of online, digital, blockchain technology. So let's see. Temporal markers, that was the word I was after. Thank you for the last line I was about to read. And used as a temporal marker by many future generations of humanity. So a temporal marker in regards to what a shift in our thinking, in our social structure, in our monetary system. And I think that's already been happening. There's no secret that, when they talk about government failing and government pressure, I'm all for decentralisation. I would love, and I have mentioned this before, I would love the whole concept of, let's say dissolving government as a whole, all the systems, no left and right. I don't want libtards, and I don't even talk like this, the red and the blue. Let's get rid of all of that. Stop labelling everyone. Stop being a label. That's what mainstream media has done. They've created these trolls and these. It's pretty sickening to see it sculpt the way we think, and I'd like to see government dissolved to the sense that we can now progress. Individuals invest in welfare, so we buy tokens. You invest in welfare. You invest in insurance. You invest in infrastructure. You invest in alternative energy and free energy. We invest in innovation. We invest in administration. We invest in tourism. We invest in the environment via blockchain-based technology. And I think it can be done if someone has got the balls to sit down and create a blockchain specifically that connects all of humanity to this system, and then we can get rid of the cronies and the corporate corruption in Congress. But why do we need them? I don't even understand why we need them. In Australia we have question time where you've got, and I think anywhere in Western society you see the two sides, Liberal, Labor, whatever, come in and all they do is behave like children and scream at each other, and I look at it and I just don't get it. Well, it's embarrassing. Why is that still a thing? Why do we even support that? Why do we vote for that type of behaviour? And these people just seem to be. It's just a sham, really, and it really comes back. I mean, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, or a critical thinker, or maybe just a free thinker. Well, I don't really care what you want to do with your own perspective, but it's the old left and right, two wings of the same bird type of stuff. It's a front. It's a front, and it has been for the last 100 years, and we just didn't see it. And I think more and more people are waking up to this. So I've gone off on a little bit of a tangent there. So, however, this whole premise of this video was to talk about that we're coming up to maybe the next wave. A little bit of uncertainty over the next few weeks. But again, take it with a grain of salt. This is just, someone's put this together. So there's human error. Whether you support Cliff High or not, I like reading stuff like this. It interests me. It's sort of exciting. And if you're invested in the space, I hope this happens. If we see a retracement for the next 2 years and nothing happens and my investments halve, then, well, I'll have to take that one on the chin as well. But there will definitely be a new wave. There's just going to be, because there's too many new businesses, too much interest and too much integration of the blockchain into our existing society. As you can see, all these new ATMs and all these companies now accepting Bitcoin as a currency. It's been accepted in Japan as an official currency. It's happening. What's going to happen in the next 24 months? I think it's just going to move so fast that, you know, there's going to be so many new little parts of this puzzle that are going to come forward, and it's going to be quite full on. And if you're not looking, at this space, 2020 comes along and people are going to say, well, what happened? How come we've gone to this new system? And if you're looking at what's happening in Venezuela, you look at what's happening in Spain, you have a look at what's happening in Russia, you look at what's happening in all these European countries, which is not being put onto mainstream news, you can see that there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of energy, human nature, and I think higher states of awareness has come forward. And I think it's happening. You know, we're getting sick of the system. Whether it's by design or not, I just think that we're going to progress to a new level. And I'm really hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can do it with a decentralized view and try to remove as much corruption as possible. Now, whether or not that means that the blockchain evolves to a particular opportunities, you might see some centralized versions and some decentralized versions. I think it's going to be up to us to choose which one. You know, whether the good and the bad, the yin and yang, dark side of the force, and, you know, do you want to be a Jedi or do you want to be Darth Vader? I think that's what's happening here. So that's all I got. Bit of dribble, bit of a rant. It's not really a rant. It's just rambles. It's just my perspective. Do whatever you like with it, but I hope that gives you a perspective that could be possibly happening. But let me know what you think in the video down below on my YouTube. Let's have a conversation about it on my Steem page. I'm trying to build up those pages, one, because I like talking about this, and if we don't talk about it like normal humans, then, you know, why are we doing any of this? So yeah, come and have a chat. Thanks for watching, guys.